I think we've all seen that one TikTok where the guy plays Aim Labs and then tries to do the same thing in Valorant but fails miserably. Although exaggerated for comedic effect, it also shows a very common problem that many Valorant players suffer from where their improvement in Aim Labs doesn't translate in game. But what makes this happen? I also suffer from this problem before reaching a high level in aim trainers while developing pretty good Valorant mechanics, and while trying to address this issue back then, I found 6 common problems along with their solutions, starting with the first one. If you're like me, you probably opened an aim trainer for the first time and started playing the first thing that you saw.
Wow, I can feel myself improving. Surely this will make me aim as good as Tenz, and Demon 1, right?
Here's a little secret. You're not playing the right scenarios. There are so many better ones that you can choose from to help you improve your Valorant aim, but where do you find them? One great free starting resource is the Voltaic Valorant benchmarks. They're made up of 3 playlists and aim labs separated by difficulty that help you to find out how good you are at almost every aspect of aim that you'll need to be mechanically proficient in Valorant or CS, and your scores are automatically uploaded to the Voltaic website so you don't have to type in numbers in Google Docs like with other benchmarks. And although these playlists are only meant to be played occasionally to gauge your level, I've personally found a lot of success grinding it as a daily aim routine after my ranked sessions. Most importantly, there's an introductory section detailing exactly why every type of aim is important in Valorant, and every routine has 2 short descriptions that show you exactly how to play the scenario and what in-game situations that scenario will help you improve in. These 3 additions aren't your average reading assignment that you get in school. They'll greatly aid your understanding of the connection between the scenarios that you practice and the various situations that you encounter in Valorant, which is extremely important for helping you translate your aim training practice in-game. I'll go into this concept in more detail later on in this video. These benchmarks, which I'll have linked in the description, got me started on the right path to being able to convert my aim training improvements in-game. But despite playing these scenarios, I still found it difficult to make that conversion from Aim Labs to Valorant. So what gives? The solution to this problem is a virtue that is also essential to mastering any skill. I think the Valorant coach Dopai said it best when he talked about training Valorant mechanics.
The goal of training your mechanics isn't to be better tomorrow, it's to be better in 2 months.
Now, this may come as a surprise to those of you who probably got recommended this video after watching some dude talk about how much more cracked his aim became after 30 days of intense Aim Labs training for only 30 minutes a day. Those videos are mostly clickbait. Take it from me and my near 1,000 hours spent in aim trainers. You're going to need to put in the time in order to benefit from them. But time goes hand in hand with another virtue that you'll need in order to get better mechanics. At the beginning of 2024, 100 Thieves Valorant didn't have many expectations behind them. The core of Asuna, Bang, and Cryo were once thought to have huge potential but were written off after an underwhelming 2023. But along with new players came a champions winning coach in Six. Fast forward 3 months later, and 100 Thieves Valorant is one of the best teams in the world. How did Six manage to pull this off? He tells his big secret here.
The way that we set goals is we'll come in every single day, have like a specific thing we want to work on for every map that we play that day, and we make sure that we cover it in a way that we will guarantee improvement.
I learned that the key to improvement wasn't grinding for so long that the tips of my index and middle fingers felt sore the next day from clicking so much. It was to do what Six does and be consistent. Putting in less time but being able to constantly put in that same amount of time will always trump a hard but inconsistent grind over the long term. Plus, spending more than 2 hours a day in an aim trainer is not recommended by even the best dog clickers on the planet due to multiple reasons I'll get into soon. But I also found out that the time I put in and the consistency I tried to maintain would be completely useless if I did this next thing wrong. Let's say I wanted to learn how to curl a football. We've already learned previously that the most efficient way to do so is to put in a consistent amount of time, so I decided to practice for 2 hours a day for a week. I noticed after that week that my shot still has barely any curl to it. Those of you out there that play soccer have probably guessed my problem pretty quickly. I completely forgot about technique. Bad technique will severely impact your ability to learn and execute mechanical skills like curling a football or playing the violin, and can even physically hurt you in some cases if done for a sustained period of time. The same is true in aim training. Non-existent technique will severely hinder your ability to play scenarios properly and subsequently transfer that improvement over to Valorant. And I even hurt my wrist at one point due to gripping my mouse with too much tension to make up for my bad technique, which is one of the biggest mistakes you can make while aim training. So how do you learn the correct technique for every scenario that you want to play? Remember at the beginning of the video when I highlighted the reading sections of the Valorant benchmarks playlist? Well, that's where you learn it, but I understand that reading can be boring for some, so here's an alternate solution. Since these playlists are in Aim Labs, you can search for the scenario you want to learn the technique for, click the full view button by the leaderboard and then click on this cyan triangle besides any of the top runs. This will bring up a replay of that run. Try not to be intimidated by the perceived lack of mistakes. Instead, focus on the technique that the individual is using and try to mimic it in your own runs. But I seriously recommend at least reading the how section for that scenario so you have a better idea of what the proper technique is, so you don't end up either copying a part of the player's technique that isn't as important or the wrong thing outright. Also, a really small but actually massive tip that supercharged my improvement: please don't autopilot when practicing, especially if you're trying to apply a newly learned technique, because you might as well not be playing when doing so. Always make sure you're as focused as possible on executing the proper technique as best as you can. There's a difference between autopiloting and flow state, however. I can usually tell the difference by looking at my recent scores. If I'm continually scoring near my personal best and get that feeling that any of my recent runs could have broken it, I'm generally in flow state, whereas when I'm autopiloting, my recent scores sit in the same range a bit below my personal best and I feel like I'm just going through the motions. But everyone is different and you'll start to slowly learn the difference in yourself as you play more. So, I was playing good scenarios, I was consistently putting in the time, I got the correct techniques down, and I was focused almost all the time, and I was starting to see the fruits in the form of consistently higher scores. But somehow, my in-game aim was still garbage. I was starting to think that this whole aim training thing was a scam, but I was wrong. I just fell into the most common trap that has affected almost all aim trainer players at some point or another. There are few things that compare to that dopamine hit you get when you reach a new peak score, especially if you've been trying to get it for a while. It makes you want more. Your sessions start getting longer, and you might start branching out into other scenario types. I was the same. Even though I was a Valorant player, I hit VT Gold for fun and to try out the Voltaic benchmarks and chase that feeling so hard that I got Voltaic Master in only a single semester of college, with my grades taking a decent hit as a result. While there's nothing wrong with this if you want to be an aim trainer main, you didn't click on this video for that. You clicked on this video to get better aim in Valorant. What I, along with many others, forgot when we launched headfirst into this new obsession is that aim training is only half of the equation to solve in order to get insane in-game mechanics. The other is actual practice in-game. For this, you're going to need to play either deathmatch or TDM, but as I was forced to learn the hard way, it's not enough to just shoot at people for an hour and call it a day. Remember, autopiloting in practice is bad, so here's two things to focus on while grinding in-game. While software like Kovaaks, Aim Labs, Aim Beast, Easy Aim, etc. are fantastic for improving your raw aim skill, they also have one blatant weakness. They cannot mimic various Valorant movement patterns one for one, so we have to settle with in-game alternatives. When you're playing DM or TDM, try to focus exclusively on reading the way that your opponent is moving. This will mostly be side to side with the occasional brief pause. If you're having a tough time reading your target's movement, try to record a VOD of yourself taking fights and figure out what exactly you're doing wrong, then figure out the best scenarios to tackle that problem in the aim trainer. For example, my biggest problem in Valorant was trying to keep up with enemies when they were strafing left and right, so I figured that my micro corrections were the problem, so I grinded those scenarios in the Voltaic Valorant benchmarks. But you have to be careful. Another huge reason why most people aren't able to transfer their aim training gains to real games is because they aren't playing the right scenarios to address their weaknesses. I had wrongly assumed that my problem was with my micro corrections until I read this document released by the Voltaic Amped program that outlined the ways they fixed a pro Valorant player's aim. I realized that I was actually supposed to be playing tasks that helped me readjust better to other players' change in movement. I'll have as many of these documents as I can find linked below, since I think they're an excellent resource for Valorant players to at least skim through. Anyways, if you're ever unsure as to what you should play to address your own weaknesses, there's a very good chance that your problem is already addressed in the Voltaic Valorant benchmarks Google Doc. Before I get into the second thing to focus on, I must stress that the reason that you're using deathmatch and TDM to practice your in-game mechanics instead of ranked is not only because you get more fights in a shorter amount of time, but also because it is a low stakes environment. As I eventually learned, your KD doesn't matter. It's not going to follow you for the rest of your life or anything, so the most important thing here is to not worry about your stats. The second thing to focus on when playing is to relax and focus on trying to apply the techniques that you practice in the aim trainer in your fights. It will be hard at first because you're most likely going to be unlearning bad habits, so your performances will take a dip for a while as you become slower than usual, but this is normal and you'll go back to fragging like normal and then get better as you practice more in game. But training your raw aim in game isn't enough to get insane Valorant mechanics. Yet another reason why I wasn't able to translate my improvement in Aim Labs to Valorant is because I forgot about one mechanic that is essential to master for my aim training improvements to actually be usable in Valorant. I'll let the potassium professor explain.
No amount of high-level raw aim will be enough to cover up bad movement.
Now, I know there was that whole controversy about Woojin lying about his rank, but I personally used the drills in his movement mastery series and can vouch for their efficacy, so I'd recommend starting with those. But there's also another factor that I needed to get a good grasp of, and it would be best understood by using the experience of the greatest player to ever touch an aim trainer at the time of recording, Matty OW. Matty holds rank 1 in nearly every major aim training benchmark and has won the only major aim training event held up to the time of recording. Based on this information, Matty should probably be one of the best Valorant players in the world, right? Not exactly. But I didn't bring up Matty to rag on him. You see, he's very self-aware. After copping some flack for his performance during a Valorant stream, he had this to say: "I never claimed good scores automatically make us better in-game. I know my in-game performance is terrible since the only place that I spend my time is the place where aim is in a vacuum. People think that my aim is trash, but they're judging off of less than 50 hours of brainless foul gameplay." This is corroborated by the fact that in Overwatch, which Matty has developed more game sense in, he is Grandmaster and used to play Collegiate. Point is, the mechanics improvement part of your quest to become a better player is near useless if that quest doesn't also aim to improve your game knowledge. But how do you even do that? There are many ways, but I made up an easy strategy where after a ranked game, I write down the one thing that made me the most uncomfortable in that entire session. In this one session, I played a game where I remember wanting to hold more map control on bind attack but not knowing what rounds to do so, as well as not knowing where and how to initiate a lurk. After identifying the problem, I find a VOD of a pro player in ranked who does that one thing best. Nats is by far the best pro lurker that grinds the ladder, so I load up a VOD of him playing attack side bind and only focus on when he holds map control versus playing with his team, as well as what conditions trigger his lurk attempts. In my next bind game, I'll try out what I learned while noting what worked and what didn't, as well as why, and then keep reasoning and experimenting from there if necessary until I feel comfortable holding space and lurking on bind attack. Just like when you aim train, you're not looking to be a SOM level genius of the game overnight. Your goal is to do this every time you play ranked, and over time your game sense will grow like crazy. Also, here's another great tip that would have improved my game sense much more efficiently had I heard it when I first started playing Valorant. It's good to play around with all the different roles as a beginner to see what you like best and to get a basic understanding of what they do. But contrary to popular opinion, flexing is not how you consistently win more games over the long term. Do not be like me and spread yourself thin trying to learn so many different aspects of the game at once. Pick a role and try to learn it as much as possible, because I promise you that someone who knows their one role very well will always have a bigger impact than someone who has a base level understanding of multiple roles, regardless of how wonky it makes your immediate team comp. Try not to play anything else until you either hit a mortal or you're legitimately losing passion for the game. Now that that's out of the way, it's time to show you the final problem that stood between me and having insane Valorant aim, a problem that everyone will encounter at one point in this quest for better mechanics. Kobe Bryant also suffered from this problem. Not a lot of people remember that in his rookie year, Kobe airballed 4 times in 5 minutes while in crunch time of a crucial playoff game. It wasn't because he was a bum either. Kobe was the most hyped young talent ever at the time, so good that he was able to play that very season straight out of high school. This problem also exists when training your in-game mechanics too. Take Hibiki for example. Hibiki is very good in the aim trainer and supposedly has the most insane TDM stats I've ever heard of. But then they play Premier and all of a sudden, they panic every gunfight, pressing their crouch key as soon as they see an enemy while gripping their mouse with the force of 1,000 suns. Sound familiar? Young Kobe and Hibiki had the same problem. They hadn't gotten enough reps in those higher stakes environments. And just like how practicing often and consistently is imperative to getting good in-game mechanics, playing in these environments often and consistently is the key to solving this problem, because as you start to do so, you'll get used to the pressure and then eventually won't feel it at all. This takes a different amount of time for everyone. It could take a while for some people, while others seemingly never have to go through this process at all, but the most important thing is that you get to this point, because once you do, it will be significantly easier to get into flow state, which will allow you to execute the things you've trained both aim and game sense wise without having to think about it, as well as making it easier to perform near or at your peak. Also, a final tip for those of you that made it this far: ranked, premier, and other competitive environments are not the place to focus on your technique and hitting every shot. You will miss more when you do this, and you will slowly tilt yourself into oblivion as you inevitably miss more and more. There's a reason why you focus on that stuff in the aim trainer, range, DM, and TDM. You need to relax and focus on playing the way you trained for, trusting that the practice you already put in will seamlessly translate.